For nearly a decade, the Upside Down has spewed countless horrors onto our screens, from the monstrous Demogorgon to... Wait, is that a beach ball? Who's that? Guys, is this supposed to... Oh, that's better. Yeah, so Stranger Things goes pretty heavy on the special effects, but you know what they say, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few weird tadpole demon things. Anyone who's ever complained about the overuse of CGI in TV and film will be delighted to know that much of the Upside Down was created with practical effects. During season 1, in fact, the Stranger Things version of The Bad Place was created entirely using set dressing. Then, when the second season rolled around, the crew decided to blend in some CGI in order to convey the scale the show's story demanded.
Are you okay?
Even then, the Duffer Brothers have always been committed to keeping the costumes, special effects, and props practical as far as possible, and never surrendering entirely to digital effects. This means that Stranger Things features actual actors actually swimming, actually sweating, and actually battling it out with actors in actual practical suits. Take Max's trip to the Upside Down in season 4, for example. These scenes were pulled off by building real sets, then adding in additional visual effects during post-production. But Sadie Sink really was there, on the Upside Down set, ready to take on the things that go bump in the night. What a trooper. In season 1, the Demogorgon was basically just a guy in a suit, well hidden by shadows. You might call this the xenomorph method of monster making.
I can't lie to you about your chances, but you have my sympathies.
When the budget improved for the show's subsequent seasons, however, the crew got the chance to render a true Demogorgon using CGI. So in season 4, Jim Hopper is forced to battle a much more monstrous version of the beast in that snowy Russian prison yard.
The first animation pass, that's when you're seeing what looks almost like just a gray clay rendering.
During filming, the team shot 2 versions of the sequence, one with a Demogorgon stand-in and one clean version. Then in post-production, Rodeo FX inserted their animated CGI Demogorgon. To give the Demogorgon its moment in the spotlight, the Duffers worked with their visual effects team to create the illusion of a oneer, a scene captured in a single continuous take, although it is very much an illusion. Maybe think of it more like a threer. Things begin to unravel fast in season 4 of Stranger Things, but Max Mayfield runs even faster. When Max is sucked into Vecna's Mind-Flayer, she discovers a red hellscape filled with blood, smoke, and a few of her dead friends for good measure. Luckily, the power of friendship and music punches a portal through Vecna's prison, and Max runs for it, literally up that hill, thank you very much, Kate Bush, to break free. You could make a pretty good argument for this being the most iconic scene in Stranger Things, but it wasn't easy to pull off. The show's art department constructed a platform set complete with key practical elements for Sadie Sink to interact with, like Chrissy's dead body in the tree and the winding wooden staircase from the Creel house. The floor was also covered in fake blood, which Sink had to navigate, although other elements were created using digital effects.
The vines, like when I'm like... None of that was there, so that was kind of just like strain my arms and my neck.
Sink's stunt double had it tougher, though, as she had to take running falls into the blood. The 2 performances were later stitched together to create the final product. Key areas of the set were also dressed with blue screens so that they could be further extended and manipulated by the visual effects team. All in all, Max's run is a testament to what you can do if you strike the right balance between CGI and practical effects, and a crowning moment for the show in general. Season 3's version of the Mind-Flayer gave Stranger Things fans a new look at an old friend, an old, monstrous, deadly, rat-eating friend. Earlier versions of this creature tended to be more smoky and particle-based, but it got a makeover for Season 3, culminating in that huge showdown at Starcourt Mall. In an interview with IndieWire, Rodeo FX's Martin Peltier explained, "They started off with a rough idea. We want this thing to come to life as a small pile of goo, which is essentially a rat being flipped inside out. And this thing is going to grow by the very end into a giant monster that is 20 feet tall." For the Mind-Flayer, the Duffers and their team were inspired by the creepy, crawly alien flesh depicted in John Carpenter's The Thing. They were also interested in replicating some of the effects achieved with the creatures in those movies, covering practical limbs and gobs of slime, for example.
You too!
Instead of actual slime, though, the Mind-Flayer's drip was created digitally and mapped over a CGI animation rig that could be adjusted based on the monster's needs. When it came to shooting on set, they used a beach ball on a stick as a reference for both the actors and animators. Rodeo FX fine-tuned the 22-foot-tall creature from there. Here's a golden rule of horror screenwriting for ya. If a nice dude volunteers to reset the breakers so that everyone else can escape, chances are it's curtains for him.
Just like that.
Stranger Things knows this full well, of course, and Sweet Bob's death by Demogorgon in Season 2 is about as devastating as they come. The Demogorgon itself is all CGI, created under the VFX supervision of Season 2's husband and wife producing team, Paul and Christina Graff. Since the struggle between Bob and the Demogorgon is very real, however, a stand-in was needed for Sean Astin to interact with.
We need some kind of person in the shot that really fights with him and really lays into him.
Some of this was achieved using the classic filmmaking trick of putting a tennis ball on a stick, but the scene's violent climax called for a very different kind of stand-in. Stranger Things writer Kate Trefry, as Paul Graff told BuzzFeed, she's really muscular, just the right size, and had the enthusiasm, so we put her in a black ninja suit and had her lay into Bob. Bet that didn't happen on Lord of the Rings. Season 4 of Stranger Things introduces the Demobats, demon bats equipped with creepy tendrils and preternatural strength. These creatures weren't just enemies to all that is good in Hawkins, though. They were also one of the show's most intense visual effects challenges. Steve, Nancy, Eddie, and Robin battle the Demobats in one memorable scene from the season's 7th episode. During this bloody, brutal fight, Steve manages to take a bite out of a bat, prompting hundreds of TV critics around the world to make the exact same Ozzy Osbourne joke.
Jesus H. Christ!
This moment also illustrates just how wildly complicated the effects work can be for these scenes. Multiple VFX vendors worked on Stranger Things Season 4, and Rodeo FX and DNEG had to put their heads together to make those Demobats fly. Speaking to VFX Voice, Rodeo FX's Julianne Herry said, "Our main goal was to make sure we could cover all possible actions with its anatomy." DNEG team members described how the Demobat battle in Episode 7 involved digitally stitching and painting 5 plates, or shots, together, while accounting for the 4 human actors working against blue screen, the 3 Demobats fighting them, and a digitally extended upside down. And that's to say nothing of the fact that the camera keeps pace with the fight, moving fluidly throughout the scene. Proof, if ever it were needed, that CGI is an art form, not a cop-out. When Dustin discovers his own little trash can pet in Stranger Things Season 2, the young D'Artagnan becomes the gang's adorable, seemingly innocent blob-like mascot. But oh, how looks can be deceiving.
What is he? My question exactly.
Yes, as we later learn, Dart is actually a baby Demogorgon. The Duffer Brothers wanted to represent 4 stages of the Demogorgon's lifespan on the show, and Dart is very much the cutest of them. In an interview with Vanity Fair, Paul Graff explained, "The challenge was that the first 2 stages were not supposed to give away that it's a Demogorgon." Christina Graff added that the visual effects teams used the shape of Dart's mouth to demonstrate his growth from a cute tadpole creature into, well, not that, she said. "We went from the cute little tiny round mouth to the petal mouth, where it actually can open and you can see its teeth and that it's actually dangerous. The team that created Dart shortened his tail, darkened his color, and adjusted his mouth further as he got older and older, all via stunning CGI design and animation." Meanwhile, on set, the actors interacted with small silicone gels. They only saw the final result long after filming had finished. One, aka Henry Creel, aka Vecna, is a powerfully psychic supervillain who is connected via hive mind to all of the Upside Down and its monsters. This is kinda sorta because Eleven sent him there through a gate she created with the powers of her own mind. Look, it was a whole thing, alright?
This is going to be beautiful.
The all-powerful Vecna is rendered using an array of visual effects, but he's also so terrifying in part thanks to the performance of Jamie Campbell Bower. During filming, Bower wore a custom suit and prosthetics, with digital augmentation and animation added during the visual effects phase of post-production. Concept artist Michael Mayer spoke to Sci-Fi about the Duffers' vision for Vecna, explaining, "They wanted a mixture of Freddy Krueger and Pinhead." The suit, designed by Barry Gower, took about 7 hours to apply to Bower each day. Among other things, it included contact lenses, dentures, and urethane fingernails. The final product is a blend of Bower and prosthetics, sweetened by a little CGI magic. For much of Stranger Things Season 4, Eleven believes she is responsible for a heartbreaking, stomach-flipping massacre that occurred in her repressed memory. Of course, it's really Vecna who is responsible. That's kind of his whole deal, really. Over the course of the show, Vecna kills his family, he kills a bunch of sad teenagers, and one day he wants to kill basically all of humanity. Vecna carries out these kills in a suitably dramatic and brutal manner. He raises his victims up before using his psychokinetic power to snap their limbs and necks. Depending on who he's killing, he can be even more cruel. Either way, the attacks are depicted in visceral detail by the show's VFX team. While the plan was initially to perform some of the kill effects practically, concept artist Michael Mayer told Sci-Fi that CGI helped make those bone breaks even more impactful. He explained, "One of the things that we found was through animation was that if you gave a little bit of resistance before the break, it would communicate to the viewer that the joint was about to snap." Of course, you might be wondering, should we be concerned that a bunch of VFX artists in LA seem to be intimately familiar with how human bones break? The answer is yes, probably. When Steve dives down into Lover's Lake before getting stuck in the Upside Down during Season 4, the effect was created with a combination of practical effects and CGI, which means that, yes, Joe Keery actually had to go for a swim. The 40-foot deep tank that stood in for Lover's Lake was located in a convention center in Atlanta, Georgia. Keery was accompanied on his dive by professionally trained divers, camera, and lighting crew.
Getting to do that sort of stuff is like true movie magic.
As it happened, Keery had to take swimming lessons back during filming of the show's first season just so he could properly match Steve's lifeguard skills.
I could swim beforehand though.
Okay.
I can't swim.
For the record.
Which is good.
Among other things, Vecna is the ultimate gatecrasher. By the end of Stranger Things Season 4, his 4 big kills have opened 4 curse gates between the Upside Down and the Right Side Up Hawkins. Vecna's blazing red rifts meet in the middle of town, and for a while it looks like Hawkins is doomed with a capital D. This fiery rift splits up Hawkins, making it easier for Vecna to take over the town, and by extension the world, and it also took a heck of a lot of VFX to pull off. Scanline VFX handled much of the rift work in Season 4, especially for the big finale where the rips through Lover's Lake. Speaking to Animation World Network, Scanline VFX supervisor Justin Mitchell said, "We had to devise a visual representation that was more dynamic, which is why we've got these 2 facing waterfalls that tear across the lake." Animators needed to figure out how the rifts would consistently tear through all kinds of environments and materials. After that, they had to make those vines grow out of the rift, then digitally light the rift and surrounding environment with red light. Mitchell also pointed out that there is yet another layer to the rift, telling digitaltrends.com, "The membrane basically serves as a doorway between the right side up and the upside down, and once you pass through that membrane, you're on the other side of that world." All this hard work paid off, and then some. One look at Season 4's final shot, and audiences know Hawkins really isn't in Kansas anymore. Or Indiana, whatever. You know what we mean. Halfway through the show's second season, Will Byers tries to face down the Shadow Monster, an earlier form of the Mind-Flayer and an agent of Vecna. The sequence is gut-wrenching, terrifying, and visually stunning, and it was made possible by the collaboration of many different departments. In particular, concept and production artists worked together to come up with a creature that was connected to the Demogorgon's electrical disturbances we saw back in Season 1.
Just to make it on par with the first season would have been great, but I think we shot for the moon.
That same monster was to be the second season's biggest visual effect, and so it required a lot of special forethought. Christina Graff told Vulture, "Since we had all these electrical disturbances last year in Season 1 where the Christmas lights were blinking or any sort of electrical light is blinking, we knew there were going to be storms in Season 2. The Shadow Monster is somehow connected to all of that energy, and then we determined it's going to be cloud-like or storm-like." Further effects trickery had to be employed when Joyce tries to pull him out of the Upside Down. The crew used a rail rigged with multiple cameras to do this, but they also needed a green screen unit that could arc around Will. As Paul Graff told Vulture, that way the team could insert the monster between Will and the background while keeping consistency with the moments from Joyce's perspective. One aspect of the show that was created using mostly digital effects was the spores you see inside the Upside Down. The crew did initially try to pull off the effect practically during Season 1, but it didn't really work out. Paul Graff told Vulture, "The Duffers are really picky about the spores. Sometimes you could get the practical spores to work, and sometimes you couldn't. The kids weren't super excited about spending a whole day with all of these flakes flying around, so I would say 90% of the spores you see in the show are digital spores, maybe even 98%. Speaking to IndieWire VFX supervisor Mark Kolbe said, "The issue with the spores was a fear of people breathing it and the level of control, and we didn't want to shoot with indoor green screen. We developed a digital option that looked identical to the practical version. So while all those spores scenes involved actors wearing breathing apparatuses, no actual fluff was ever flying around." Here's a question. How does a digital VFX artist actually make the upside-down match Hawkins so closely? Well, that's easy. By scanning the show's actual sets and reforming them using 3D models. Essentially, the crew of Stranger Things utilized camera work that replicated the movement of the cameras within the original sets, then added some spooky visual effects for good measure. The end result? A literal upside-down version of the town we see in the series. As Paul Graff once told Vulture, "We're looking at it like a parallel universe, basically. You have these two parallel worlds, and then you can put things into the CG world, and it's just going to line up with the parallel world." Back in the 80s, people didn't buy everything online. Sometimes they went to a very special place called the mall, a magical world of fountain soda, food courts, and funky knitwear.
Try things on until you find something that feels like you.
The Duffer Brothers know the power of the mall, of course, and the power of nostalgia, and they delivered heaps of both with the third season of Stranger Things. But where did they go to find the show's Starcourt Mall? Well, production designer Chris Trujillo actually found a mostly vacant suburban Atlanta mall, which became the base set for Season 3's story. Gwinnett Place Mall was a so-called dead mall when the Stranger Things crew rolled in. Trujillo and team then built out much of the two-story, totally 80s atrium space. As he told the Los Angeles Times, "We had to painstakingly recreate the facades, all of the signage, all of the storefront displays." Trujillo's team also created the Scoops Ahoy set, telling the Times, "It was our special little baby." The team even stocked stores that were never actually filmed in order to better give the appearance of a working mall and allowing the Duffers to make creative choices on the fly. This practical magic, as well as Rodeo FX's digital modeling and painting, created a final result that was, in 2 words, totally radical.